Welcome to Washington State Legends of Soccer in our series Conversations with a Legend. I'm Frank MacDonald, and for the past several years, Washington Legends has been collecting on-site, on-camera stories from our community's legendary newsmakers. However, our conversation series is done remotely, and we are always taking suggestions for interview candidates via our website's contact porthole at wasoccerlegends.org. Today, our guest is Dave Gillett. Dave is one of the original Sounders who came from overseas to Seattle over 45 years ago and has since made it home here. He was a standout central defender for those first 5 seasons, and later he was involved in the management of FC Seattle, a novel enterprise that put our community at the forefront of Americanizing the upper levels of the game. So welcome, Dave.
Good morning.
Morning. So we've got about a full team of questions here since we now have 5 subs, so that's 16. So here are our starters, and we'll get going with those. But we want to take you back. First of all, we associate you with those formative years here of professional soccer in Seattle. So can you tell us, though, what we may not know is what happened the 23 years before Dave Gillett stepped foot in Washington. Where'd you grow up? Tell us about your family, what led you on the path to the football pitch, and your favorite players and so on.
Well, I grew up in Edinburgh, Scotland. Mother was a homemaker, as they all used to be, didn't work, looked after us kids. I've got a brother and a sister. My father was a education administrator. I loved the game from early years. We had a wonderful teacher in the elementary school. He switched us all onto the game of soccer. So I was picked for Edinburgh Schoolboys as a left fullback, actually. It gave me a great taste for the game. I played for a boys club called North Narkisson Boys Club, which in those days used to provide all the different kinds of sports for kids to play. Gymnastics I was involved in, soccer, swimming. Kind of like the clubs today, like Seattle United, Crossfire, provide in addition to your high school sports education. I played for the high school as well, played for the boys club on the weekend, 2 games and 1 day a week. So I was immersed in the game from a young age. It was in the culture of Britain, and it was the only sport, the only big time professional sport at the time.
So you did start playing. I mean, you had a few years under your belt at the professional level before coming to Seattle, obviously, because that's where you were spotted. Tell us about those early years where you migrate into getting maybe an apprenticeship and then a professional contract.
Yeah, I was playing for my school was called Liverton. I had a big history in doing well in the Scottish Secondary Shield, and we got to the final and we played at a place called Easter Road, which was one of the 2 professional teams in Edinburgh, Hibernia, which was always a team I supported. And I happened to have a good game in the final, and the scout talked to me after the game and offered me a schoolboy contract to join Hibernia on a part-time basis. So I had never thought I was good enough, because the team I was on at secondary school, which is U18, everybody on my team had signed professional forms with different clubs, and I was the only one who had not signed. In part because I had gone previously to a school that only played rugby from age 12 to 16, so I lost out on a lot of the formative stuff soccer-wise that I should have learned. So I was a bit of a late developer, and it surprised me that I was offered a contract with Hibernian, but I loved it because that was the team I used to support from when I was really young.
Okay. And then how do you, well, we'll get to how you get spotted, but so I put out feelers for some admirers of yours for questions. And so one of the most admired players for for Rain FC in their existence was Kim Little, who's from Scotland. But Michelle Akers tells the story of a trip she took shortly after the '91 World Cup, and she goes there on an Umbro publicity tour with Mick Hoban, and she said she's doing juggling drills and so on, and she just got stares from mainly a male audience. And she said that the thing that she realized then, this is 1991 or 92, that there weren't very many females playing the sport. So what was it like for you growing up, and how have you seen it change there?
Well, as far as the women's game is concerned, yeah, she's a brave woman to go on that kind of a promotional tour at that time, because there was no women playing at all in Scotland. In fact, it was, as she found out, I believe, it was kind of actively frowned upon. So she would be an unusual personality in Scotland at the time. So a brave woman indeed.
Okay. So the Kim Littles were probably a few years away from, well, from probably being born, but being accepted as a player in Britain, or is this Scotland, do you think, in particular?
No, I think Britain in general is very unusual for women to be playing the game. They're catching up quickly now to the series of American teams that have set the standards across the world, because the professional clubs have realized that they should have been promoting the women's game all along. So now the women are able to be attached to professional teams, play in good stadiums, have good training facilities, have use of professional coaches. So they're playing catch up to the good, in fact, great American teams that have performed well over the years. They're fast catching up, I believe.
Okay, all right. So in the winter of '74, how do you get spotted? How do you start to hear about Seattle as a possibility in your near future?
Well, I was a little unfortunate in Hibernian. I got a cartilage injury towards the end of the season. I had to put up with 4 different managerial changes and found myself without a club at the end of that. At the end of, I think, the '71 season, '71, '72. It's kind of far back, Frank. You'll have to excuse me for being a little cloudy on some of these dates. But yeah, I think it was '71, '72. So I went to Crewe, recovering from an injury, did a lot of extra training, caught up, was offered a contract, and quite enjoyed my time at Crewe, although I found they were a less ambitious club than I wanted to be with. So when the connection with John Best was made, which involved him knowing my manager, coach, from his days at Liverpool, he offered me a chance to come over to America in a new team in Seattle. So I thought it was a great opportunity to see the world, get more exposure. I'd heard that there was a lot of good players coming over to play in the league and wanted to test myself against them. So it was a great opportunity. Plus, some of these clubs are run quite tight financially, so I don't think I'd be wrong to say that Crewe wanted to unload my paycheck and have somebody else pay me for the summer. So it was a little self-serving also, but it seemed to fit very well. So that's how it came about. John Best had a connection with an old Liverpool player called Jimmy Melia, who had played in a great Liverpool club in the late 60s.
I've heard his name a lot. Yeah. So, you kind of said what intrigued you was to see the world. Did you see it as a long-term commitment or just a stepping stone? And what did your peers and your family have to say about it?
Well, initially I felt it was a stepping stone. I went down to Crewe, which was not a glamorous club by any means, but I was trying to recover and stay in the game from an injury I had on leaving the Birmingham. So my intent was to see the world, try and keep playing, keep developing, and test myself against these other players. I really didn't know a lot about Seattle, even geographically. In fact, I didn't even bring a coat with me. That shows you how smart I was, Mike. And I had to send for it later. So, I'm admitting some stupidity here, but in reaching Seattle, I loved the city initially. It was great. The characters that John had brought over to play with the club were on this kind of mission to promote the game. Still had a lot of talent left, and the guys were great. That first season was wonderful.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Were there a couple teammates from Crewe that came with you?
Yeah, John Rowlands, the big centre forward, who unfortunately passed away from the COVID recently. Great character. And Alan Stevens, a guy from young fullback that had been at Wolverhampton Wanderers and Liverpool, was from Liverpool, I should say. He came with us. So it was kind of a leap of faith in a lot of ways. But I did trust John Best. I liked him as a guy, and he was very honest. He laid out what he was trying to do, his vision. He told me Jimmy Gabriel was going to come with us. So I was quite confident that things would be of a good quality experience. But it was just on loan for one season.
Okay. So I know you've shared with many your memories of that first season, but take us through those first couple weeks, because you literally end your season, jump on a plane, arrive, probably meet the rest of the team, and then boom, you're playing a game within days down in Los Angeles, and then a week later up here in Seattle.
Yeah, it was a good adventure. So the week before leaving, I played a game against Brentford. And my manager was an old Liverpool player, as I said, and he told me that I'd be playing against Jimmy Gabriel, who was playing midfield for Brentford. So I knew Jimmy's reputation, and sure enough, he left his mark on me, so to speak. So when I showed up at the airport, there was one or two players there. Alan Stevens was there, Big John was with us, and Jimmy Gabriel, who I had heard was going to be there. So it was a little bit of an awkward meeting. But Jimmy being Jimmy and me being me, we hit it off right away, and the scars were never mentioned again. So that's the initial thing. So yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind on a plane, long journey. I'd never been on that type of long trip before. We came, it was night time in Seattle, didn't see much of the city, taken to an apartment at Queen Anne. We shared an apartment with, I think, 2-3 other guys. And yeah, boom, all of a sudden we were here. Down at Memorial for training, meet the guys. I think we had a few days training, and then off to Los Angeles.
We saw that photo there of the first game down in LA, which I think they thought it was a wise thing to play on Cinco de Mayo. Turns out not, at least the crowd wise. But so you probably play in the heat, probably more, considerable heat, and then you come up to Seattle, which I don't think it rained, but I mean you're back in a marine climate, and And no one knows what to expect that first night in Seattle, crowd-wise, reception-wise, performance-wise. But take me through those 8 days, LA, back up to through that first night in Seattle.
Well, yeah, there was the heat was quite different for me because 70 degrees in Crewe, which is near Manchester, is a warm day over there. By the way, it rains a lot in Manchester and Crewe, same as here. But yeah, the crowd was a little sparse. It was a little not off-putting, but it was a little surprising at the college stadium. But what stuck out to me was the quality of some of the foreign players that LA had. They had a centre forward called Yuri Vanhofer, who was an excellent centre forward. I remember my first thoughts were, man, if all the foreign players are like this, I am going to have to up my game to justify John's faith and bring me over. That was my initial impression, the first 10 or 20 minutes of the game. So, you know, as the seasons progressed, there was never any foreign players in the league I played in. In fact, the whole of Britain frowned upon foreign players. They didn't rate them, as opposed to today, which is completely different. So they were actually quite ignorant about it. But I really enjoyed it because there were all different styles of foreign players, and my ambition was to test myself against any good players I could play against. So that was my initial impression.
So then you're on turf up here, and tell us about the crowd that opening night. You've told me this story a few times, but just the reception the team got that first night in Seattle.
Yeah, fantastic. John, I said to John, how many do you expect? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We've done a good job promotion. Maybe 4,000 or 5,000. We can build on it. So he was amazed and surprised, as we all were, when 11,000 people packed in there and cheered for us heading the ball. We waved to the crowd. We waved after the game. We were friendly. We were a breath of fresh air, I think. The crowd took to us immediately. So it was, and we won 4-1, which was a big thing, by the way. And we, you know, Memorial was kind of a tight field. John's thought was that we would play quickly from back to front to make it exciting. You know, in years later, the quality of play was probably better, but it was an exciting style. So the fans took to us initially in a great fashion. It never rained all the time in Memorial. For 2 seasons we played there, it was always warm, sunny, beautiful nights. So it was a great beginning.
Okay. So by year 2, you're putting down roots, and you weren't alone. So what was the plan coming into year 2 and 3 about you living and playing here, and the club's philosophy, and why do you think the team connected with the community so well?
Well, the second season, 75, I had seen what it was like the first year, and I began to have thoughts about staying permanently, but it was only a short season back then, only 4 or 5 months, I think, to make sure they could get loan players from all over the world to sustain the league, because they didn't quite have enough American players of the quality needed at the time. So I had thoughts of staying. I talked with Jack Daly, the general manager. They wanted to do lots of promotions, really get out in the community, try and build the crowd to the move for the Kingdom, coming up in the Kingdom. So I saw there was an opportunity there, and when I didn't get the not the exposure, when I didn't get the bigger clubs coming after me by playing in Crewe, I decided that this would be a great challenge to go and help build soccer in America. So it kind of fit perfectly. I was playing against good players. I loved the area. I was in a developing team that was always getting better. John was ambitious. Jimmy Gabriel was a wonderful coach, totally refreshing as a coach, where he would talk to you, he would encourage you, he would show you, which was a little different to what I'd experienced in Britain.
Okay.
So all of that made it an easy decision for me, Frank. You know?
Did you ever share stories with friends from back home, or just players you got to know about in other NASL cities, their experience? Was there similar bonding going on with community elsewhere, or was this special here?
Yeah, I've recently seen commentary by Peter Whiff, who played for Portland, came with the same idea as myself, who I thought was a wonderful player, went back to Britain after a couple of seasons here and did really well internationally and all that. So he had a similar story to mine. I don't think I ever talked to him about it, but I talked to other players who heard of what was happening over here, heard about a fresh scheme of building soccer in a new country, wanted to be part of it. There was a lot of players at Portland and all the other clubs, the same as myself, who wanted a fresh start from the grind of the lower divisions in Britain. Were young enough to keep wanting to improve themselves. And the reputation of the league after a season or two here was actually quite good in the UK.
Okay.
And other places, by the way. Spain, lots of other places where the league was, in fact, a bit of a grind. A lot of games played on poor quality pitches. You know, not quite the medical care you might expect for assets of clubs. You know, so it made it easy to come here, frankly.
This is kind of an unscripted question. Tell me about I thought you'd tell a story about actually going home after training at Memorial, and you'd see kids in a park and they're perhaps not playing properly, or they're not organized, and you and a bunch of players just decide to pull over. Am I remembering this correctly?
Well, I'm dating myself, but in those days you hardly would see any goalposts in a park. So it wasn't unusual because all the guys were of great personality that John got, either through luck or good judgment, and I think it was the latter. He always got players who wanted to complete his vision, like go out and coach in the community, go to awards ceremonies, just to help grow the game. So yeah, it's a long time ago now, but that would not be unusual for that to have happened.
Okay, back to the field, and so memorable matches, memorable just anecdotal stories from because you went from playing, as you said, kind of 4th Division England, and now you're playing alongside by year 3 Hurst. You play alongside Jimmy Gabriel. You're playing against Georgie Best, Marsh, Pele, the Cosmos. I'm sure there's a couple stories or games that come to mind.
Oh, I was in heaven when playing against all these players. I mean, when I was at school, 17, 18, George Best was playing for Man United, Dennis Law was playing, Bobby Charlton was playing, Beckenbauer, all these great players, man, who still had a lot of ability, even when they came here later on. They still had tons of skill, tons of ability, and still a love of playing. I mean, I ended up going to San Jose and playing with George Best, and he would still get angry at training when things didn't go well, when he thought people weren't doing what they should be doing. He would get angry and tell them off. So, the passion was still there with a lot of these older. But yeah, I loved it. I would be disappointed. I remember one game we were supposed to play New York in the Kingdom, and Chinaglia was injured and wasn't playing. And I felt really disappointed that I wasn't going to play against one of the best centre forwards in the league. So that was where I was able to take my game, where I really wanted to challenge some of the best and the good players in the league.
I think we've got a let's cue up some clips featuring you, and this game you might remember. It's the Sounders at Soccer Bowl 77 in Portland.
Okay, I remember that one.
Yeah, well, take a look here. Here we go. Bring back some memories.
Oh yeah, that was a good quality game, Frank. It was a fast pace. That was early on. Giving Chinaglia a little message. I was on the floor.
There's Beckenbauer.
Some wonderful, yeah. Look at that pass from Beckenbauer. Some wonderful players. Yeah, it's perfect. Some wonderful players playing in New York, and it was like it was the Stars versus a team that enjoyed playing with each other. That was a real team that we had together in 1977.
Well, you know, we talked about playing direct, but there's some combination play here. I mean, it's not just route one football.
Oh, no, we had players who could play the game, keep possession, go fast, go slow. We had quality players that were playing in good clubs in Europe. And we could really play the game, you know. I felt we were a little unlucky in that game. The goalkeeper had Shep Messing had one of the best games I've seen a goalkeeper have in a long time. But it just was not meant to be, I think, in the day.
Oh, that shot. I mean,
that was a great save by Messing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a great game. He should have been man of the match. They gave the man of the match to Stevie Hunt, who had a decent game, but scored one goal. They always give it to the goal scorers. They never give it to the defenders, man.
No, that I don't know why that is, but you guys get the short end of the stick with the paychecks and the prizes. So.
The defender can have a great game, and the forward can be standing there the whole game and accidentally bump one into the goal and he gets man of the match. I can't figure it
out. So when you come here, you're 23 and you're under the wing of Jimmy and maybe Mike England when he comes in. But by the third year, you know, Jimmy McAllister's coming through the reserve team and I think get some time at the end of that season. And then he's starting, as we saw there in Soccer Bowl. So how did you pass along? How did you make that transition from the prodigy to the leader? How do you pass along knowledge and advice, and then how do you lay down the law?
Well, I think you show by example. You know, Adrian Webster and I used to always stay late after training. We were honest with ourselves and knew what those strengths and weaknesses were. And I think Jimmy saw a lot of good quality professionals coming through the Seattle system. Jimmy Robertson, Mike England, Jockey Scott, Gordon Wallace, great professionals. And Jimmy took his cue from that. Yeah, some of us talked to Jimmy. He was a young kid willing to learn, and then we just would lead by example, help him as much as we could. But he saw how we trained, how we took it seriously, the movement on the pitch. He was really a great young kid who took it all in, enjoyed himself. He was very cheeky, actually. He was a cheeky kid, now that I remember. And he looked like he was about 12 years old in these photographs. But he was willing to learn, he was willing to listen, and he watched the good professionals and copied them.
Yeah, that's a pretty good formula.
It was lots of fun, Jimmy. It was great. It was cheeky, but it was very likable. He's always used to tell him just to keep him in his place. That a lot of times in the after game meetings, his mother would come up and she was a little old lady and she would thank me for looking after him. So I used to tell Jimmy that all the time just to keep him humble. That his mum used to always be looking out for him. In fact, I've told him that recently, and he doesn't say much when I tell him
Uh, well, you do. You stay in touch with a lot of your teammates from those days.
that. Yeah, you know, when you finish playing, the thing you miss the most is not the fitness training, all that, which was enjoyable. The thing you miss the most, excuse me, is the banter between the players, the joking around, the friendships, the camaraderie. That's what you miss the most after a while. And we always said players are a great personality. John Rowlands, Willie Penman, who you're familiar with, was an early midfield player from Scotland. Uh, Even Dave D'Amico, the young American guys who would kid him on, and there's a great camaraderie on the teams. All the different permutations of the teams we had when I was there always had great relationships with each other.
So we the clip there from Soccer Bowl, I think is vintage Dave Gillett, because I really thought you played, and I think Michelle has expressed she thought you played with an elegance and a toughness. You know, it's how do you balance that? Because you mentioned Jimmy was a very skilled player, but he left his mark on you, and maybe you left your mark on Canalia. I don't know, but it is you're playing skillful, and yet you've got to get in.
Well, I would watch. I mean, Jimmy Gabriel was a famous player back in Britain for Everton, great player. He'd be making millions of pounds today if he was playing. But his qualities were that he was super aggressive when he wanted to get the ball, but he switched off when he was calm and elegant and insightful when he got the ball, when he had possession. So that was a thing I always wanted to do. I mean, I'll leave it to other people if they want to think I was an elegant player. That's a wonderful compliment. But I don't want to say that about myself. But what I try to do was be honest with myself, admit my strengths and weaknesses, work on my weaknesses, but play to my strengths. And if one of my strengths was looking elegant on the ball, wonderful. But I didn't really regard myself as that type of player. I looked at people like Jimmy Gabriel and Mike England, and their success was based on doing the simple things well all of the time. Not some of the time, all of the time. Win it, give it to somebody who's more skillful on the team as you are, and let them do their magic. My job was to be defensive, to win possession, to cover, to win the ball in the air, and that, if I did that well, I would be a successful player. And I learned that from Jimmy especially, but Mike England also, because he was one of the top centre-halves in the world at one time, and that was his secret, to do the simple things well all of the time. And that's what I strive to do.
Okay. Well, I know you had been on like some of the all NASL teams, the selections, and you were really coming into your own. And then the 78 opener, a broken leg, and you're just entering your prime. And we've watched others. You know, Pepe had a broken leg that first season. We watched Steve Zakawani. He was, you know, still young when he was cut down there in Colorado. It's a physical injury, the broken leg, obviously, but mentally, how did it affect you, and how has it affected others? I'm sure you shared stories. So, be it amateur or professional, what would you share with a kid or a pro that's going through that kind of turmoil?
Yeah, very difficult, man, because to see as a soccer player, you got to give 100%. You know, and when you get the unexpected injury, it's devastating. And you know, I didn't have much backup. I was 28 when I broke my leg, and I was able to make it back to an extent, but never as good as I really wanted to be. So the game lost its passion for me after a while, trying to recover the constant battle to try and get fit. I think I could have made it back after the first one, but the second one made it especially difficult. But it's good that you brought this up, Frank, because recently, uh, more and more, the mental aspect of bad injuries is being covered in the Premier, in the German leagues, and in Spain. Because when you have a big injury like that, the mental side of it in those days was kind of overlooked. And I did have a tough time after I quit playing, coming to terms with it. And in fact, I went to some counseling a little bit to help me over the hump of it all. And in looking at Pepe and looking at Steve, my heart goes out to people who have these bad injuries because I know what it takes to get back and recover. People always say you're never quite as good as you were. It's your best friends are the orthopedic surgeon. It's so difficult. But, so I'm really happy to see that aspect, especially in the leagues where your players are a valuable asset to the clubs, that topic is more and more getting discussed and taken care of earlier than my experience. I didn't put that too eloquently, but I think I got over the difficulty mentally of overcoming these kind of injuries. You feel alone because you're not part of the team anymore. You feel like you were never as good as you were. Your income is in jeopardy. So I'm glad they're addressing the issue. And I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, thanks. Dave, so the Sounders close up shop in '83, but tell us how you became involved again with the game and the next, I guess you could say, the next stage of Seattle's soccer development here.
Well, it was tragic that after all the early building, the hard work that kind of crumbled as a league, it was hard to see. And it was especially difficult for some of the young players that we saw developing at University of Washington, and I think WSU still had a men's team. Players like Rick Bluebauer, Darryl Green, Jeff Cook, the goalkeeper that we had on the FC Seattle team when we started it. All those guys never had a place to play after the NASL crumbled. So the idea was through a guy called Bud Greer, who was a total friend of soccer, had no ambitions to go big time, but he wanted to provide a good level of play for all those kind of players that I just mentioned. Those players who were at college, who had nowhere to go to make the next step, but were staying local. And we began FC Seattle to provide an outlet for them and also to keep the game alive until it regenerated itself somehow, as indeed it happened later on.
So how different, explain to people who weren't around during that time, how different the model of FC Seattle was to what preceded it around here, or in America in general. You talked about foreign players throughout the league, and then what was the FC Seattle model was?
Well, the model was to try and take local players who had left college and get them playing it. I think it was the Western Soccer League on the West Coast, I provide an outlet for them and provide good coaching. Tommy Jenkins was the coach. Timmy Gabriel was involved at one time on and off. Provide them the best league that we could possibly provide at the time. We had teams in LA, I think San Diego, and we would go play on the weekends, play 2 games in these places. There would be crowds watching, not huge, but 1.5, 2, 3, 4,000 at times in Memorial, and just try and keep the players developing and provide an outlet for them. We took them on tour. We had some good success on tours that we took them on. Through our contacts, we were able to get games against professional clubs in the UK, Dundee, Portsmouth, Middlesbrough. So that was quite amazing for those players to be able to do that. And Doug Greer funded all of that as a thank you for those guys playing for our club. And I don't think I'd be amiss in saying that they loved it. They enjoyed the games. There was all different kinds of players playing. There was some foreign players playing in the league. There was some college players playing in the league. Eddie Henderson, I don't know if people would remember locally, who I just met recently at 60 Acres, by the way, after years and years. The kid was hugging me to death, by the way. So, which is really nice to experience. All those players have great memories of that team we had. Tad Willoughby, who became a policeman in Seattle. All those guys have got great memories of that place that Bud provided.
So when you look back, what purpose did FC Seattle ultimately serve in getting us to the next stage, which was the Sounders starting off in a lower division a few years after that? But what do you think it filled a vital role over that time?
Yeah, I think so. We were able to garner some publicity. The crowds were 2.5, 3, 4, 5,000 on occasion. We had some success in that league. It kept it alive. It developed into, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, was it the USIL, which was the forerunner of the MLS? Brian was able to coach that. Bernie James coached that. The next generation of players played in it. Hanneman, who used it as a springboard to playing professionally in the UK. This was a stepping stone to upping the level and keeping players ready for the next professional league, the MLS, that came into being, I think 21 years ago now.
Yeah. So finally, we see many of those MLS Sounders who played on those early teams, 2009, 2010 under Ziggy, and now they're going into retirement. And how you talked a little bit about the transition to life outside the game. What's it like? What are they going through in your estimation?
Well, it's, as I said, man, to be a professional player, a good one, you've got to put in 110%. And through my experience, what I do now is if I meet any young kids, I always encourage them to get an education, in combination with working hard at the game, because it's over in the blink of an eye. So it can be difficult to leave all those friendships behind. Like I said, the camaraderie is the thing you remember the most. So the transition is difficult, and I would encourage the players to at least try and get themselves ready for the transition while they're playing. But it is very difficult. I mean, it's a game I love to death completely. I played it since I was 5 years old, and it's difficult to move on. I was able to do it. I had a young family. I had to put the game behind me. But I still enjoy going to the games now, watching on TV, enjoying my conversations with Brian and the club. Brian and the general manager and the owner, Adrian Hanover, are more than welcoming to all the old players, which we appreciate. So I look from a distance now, but the transition was pretty difficult, you know, especially with the injuries, because you always want to leave on your terms. And like Steve Zakuani, myself, Pepe, you kind of don't leave from your own choosing. So that makes it doubly difficult. But life goes on. I got married, I had kids. I always tell people I had to get a real job, you know. And I'm glad you see the humor in that, Frank. You know what I'm talking about. You know, uh, so you survive, you know. The trouble is, it's so exciting and so interesting. You meet with tons of people, you get to travel. Sometimes what you move on to can be second best in some ways. So that's what makes it difficult. But I've had a good working life. I met lots of people. I've really enjoyed it. You know, I proved to myself that I could transition from it and leave it behind and still enjoy it and like it, which I think a lot of players find really difficult. But I think I've been able to do it.
Well, I believe this since I first met you, that I wanted to share with the audience, getting a chance for them to get to know you. What a treasure you are. The fact that you and some of your teammates have settled here and made, coached us, just been friends. And so I look forward to seeing you soon and often, and perhaps again in this series. We could go on a whole different tack the next time. But thank you for everything you've done for this community. Thanks for all of you who are watching our Conversation with the Legends series. And for more on the history of Washington State soccer and to learn more about Washington State Legends of Soccer, go to wasoccerlegends.org. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Frank. I've never been called a treasure before.